I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for January 25th. It is 4 o'clock and we'll start off with roll call. Please identify if you are present. James Leckie.
Here.
Mark Nelson.
Here.
Megan Larson.
Here.
Scott Walters.
Here.
Sean Keating.
Here.
Steve Corey. Here. Karen Richmond.
Here.
And Tom Oddie. And we'll go in the ex officio members, Rochelle Klein.
Here.
Quorum being present, we'll go ahead and proceed into business. First item is the adoption of the agenda. Draft agenda was sent out by email and was posted. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. Are there any comments?
Mr. Chair, no comments, but move to adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to approval of minutes. The draft minutes for October 26th meeting were posted and distributed. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at those.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the minutes as written.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes for the October 26th meeting be approved as written. Are there further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. With that, we move into staff program reports, but I'd like to go ahead and take a second at this point. We have someone in the audience, Peter Hall, who is in a new position. And Sayard, maybe you could go ahead and introduce him to the commission.
Yeah, Peter Hall is the new programs management manager, and he's taken over Joanna's position. So he just started 3 months ago. So he'll be coming to the meetings as well. And, you know, if you have any questions, we can both answer those.
Thank you and welcome. With that, we'll go into the program reports. Item 2 is the quarterly report. Sayard?
So this one goes through October to December of last year. So we ended the year with 40,693 households and total population still at 100, well, current encompass 133,470. So we're definitely increasing on households each year, actually by probably each month a little bit as well. And then for trash, we see that it has increased. 2020 is kind of an odd year, and I think we're starting to get now back into kind of some normalcy, and we're probably going to see similar. This is how it, you know, should have been before COVID tonnage information. And then same thing here for looking at pounds per household. It's steadily increasing, which makes sense because our population is increasing as well. And then, you know, around the November, I'm thinking, not everybody recycles their leaves, so that might be why it's a little bit more around, or sorry, November. So that might be a reason why that is. And then for recycling, this is commingled recycling. The tons have gone down some, I'm not sure why, but it's still, the trend is pretty much the same throughout, the years, kind of flat. And then this is pounds per household, pretty much the same, ebbs and flows a little bit. And then grass services or subscriptions, these have been steadily increasing. Now it's in the 600s, which is good. We want people to, take advantage of that composting. And then glass has increased, but sometimes it has decreased, but, and that's probably because we have the 24-hour at the Meridian transfer station drop-off area. And then I added this new slide to kind of give you an idea, snapshot of the last 3 months, our diversion rate, which total diversion. So this means all of the material that we've produced, how much of that was taken out or not brought to the landfill. It was either composted or recycled. So right now, we ended the year 10%. So it's usually high in November, and that's because of leaves, and then it's a little higher in December, leaves, and then we do the Christmas tree, and so January will be a little high too for Christmas trees. But on average, the other months it's around between 8 and 9%. And then that's the tonnage report. Do you have any questions on that?
So that's, all these numbers are just the residential numbers, right? No commercial or industrial information is presented in this report.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, except for the total diversion. That takes into account everything, but everything else is residential. Yeah.
Another question, there are times when we need to kind of understand this when we're looking at various subjects. One way to go ahead and have that available to us would be to have a written copy of this distributed to the commissioners. But another way would be to post it on our website so that citizens could see our diversion rate. Have you considered some way to go ahead and capture this information for people to be able to look at and understand our situation?
Right now, we weren't going to do that because we needed to update our website, and we're still fine tuning it. But the hope is, and this is still preliminary, is that maybe yearly we could, write up some type of a little report, kind of, this is what we did throughout the year, and that would be up on the website. So something like that we're looking into.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, any questions about the information that's been presented to us?
Mr. Chair, Sayer, just remind me, multifamily is included in residential, or is that commercial?
Multifamily is commercial, unless they're 4 and under units, then they can have carts and they're in with the residential, but that's pretty small. So predominantly it's commercial right now.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Thank you for that presentation. I think with that, we move on to the next item, which is a solid waste plan status update.
Yeah, and actually your question kind of segues nicely into here. So it's completed, it's written. Right now, it's been sent to the director and she's reviewing it. And so it's in review mode now. So I'm just, after that, we'll be getting revisions probably. So adding things, just making sure things make sense. And then it goes on from there. And then hopefully in a couple of months, it will be able to be viewed to the public, to you guys. So it's good to have it, come to fruition, and then the exciting to have it implemented. And I think that will help you guys understand the direction that the city wants to take, and then then develop what you guys would like to do with your program.
Commissioners, any questions on the status of the solid waste management plan? Very good. Then I guess that takes care of the staff program reports. We'll move into old business. First item is the glass and squishy water bottle program funding. I think the key to this is that thank you for giving us direction on this. And I guess that's okay. So you've got in front of you on the screens the expected cost in FY23 for glass recycling. Do we have an action in relationship to this?
Yes, so last time we were together, you guys approved $10,800 for glass. This is just to give you the breakdown of like a really good number to go off of to see how much it's going to cost for a year. But we also need to do an action item, and I'm going to change to the next slide on squishy water bottles. So the total ask would be $9,108. So we could, if you wanted to maintain that $10,800 or move it down to $10,000. But I just wanted to, because before you guys were just talking about it, but we didn't have in front of you, some good numbers to go off of. So right now, Public Works already budgeted for $5,000 to pay for glass. But as we talked about and Conrad was explaining 3 months ago, the hauling, we pay for hauling now $400, and it works out roughly 12 times a year. So the SWAC's total would actually be less than $10,800. It'd be $7,808 for the glass portion.
Okay, and where we're at is that we had a not to exceed 10,800 for glass alone, right?
Yeah.
But what we're not on record on is the squishy water bottle portion.
Yeah, we didn't really talk that much about that. So both these are here because we still need it for FY23. So currently we, and I'm working on writing a memo so then can present it to council, is an ask for both these two programs to fund it to the end of this fiscal year. It'd be for the glass and for the squishy water bottle, which let me know when you want to look at that one.
Go ahead and switch slides.
And here's some questions for you on the side to consider. And some of these are for, we can think about it for fiscal year 24, should we change, if you want to keep it, if you want to change it to, instead of a pilot project, to program a service.
Bill, could you advise me on one aspect of this? Can we make commitments, ongoing commitments going forward, or is it more appropriate that we authorize spending on a year-by-year basis?
Mr. Chair, I think you're going to need to do it year by year.
Okay, thank you. And so, yeah, I think. So anyway, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on the information that's presented here? I could kind of take the next step and discuss some of the motions that would be appropriate, but I think there may be some questions about this information before we even get there.
Mr. Chair, so with the glass, we don't have actually a contract with the Utah company, Momentum. It's one of those things that they do recycle, and that's why we do it, to get out of the landfill. But if another company closer or another company can use that, so it's one of those things that if something like that pops up, we could even direct our glass towards them.
Rochelle, I'm going to go ahead and direct that to you.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, and yes, Councilman, I guess it's Commissioner Keating. I almost said Councilman. So yes, we do have a contract with Momentum Recycling. We're not obligated to take them tons, but we have a contract with them for charges when we do ship to them. So if something is more affordable, closer, we can certainly use them. Another company, we're not obligated. There's no minimum, there's no floor where we have to say, we're going to bring you a minimum of this many tons of glass or anything like that. But we do have a contract with them. So if there's contamination, we have to cover the cost of that and for shipping costs and things like that. But we're open if there's something better.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, so the request for around $9,100 that would come out of our community recycling fund, Mr. Neri described that we would make an annual request for funding. The $5,000 that Public Works puts towards glass right now, does that come out of the community recycling fund or some other source?
No, that doesn't come out of the community recycle fund. That's a base budget, so it's in the general fund.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so if we move this from a pilot program to a permanent program, how does that affect the financing through Public Works?
It doesn't. I just was wondering, a pilot program project, only goes so far, and then you're like, okay, let's, because the term just sounds like we're still testing the waters. So do you still want to test the waters, or are you interested in making this more, kind of like a service, like the glass recycling? That was just my question. I know you guys talked about it before, so I was just kind of organizing what you guys talked about before into kind of a
So we could
listing.
convert this to a permanent program that we would just always have to fund it currently through, or partially fund it through the recycling fund, right? Which is okay.
Yeah, well, so only part of the glass is funded through Public Works. The other part would be, and that's new to you guys, would be funded through the Community Recycle Fund. And so far and in the future, the plastic squishy water bottles would be funded through the Community Recycle Fund as well.
And if I might, I think the difference is more in terms of wording at this point, so that in future years, should it be moved, the move would be to reauthorize or extend the project and the funding versus any discussion about pilot plant, but it would, or pilot program. So we'd have a program, and then what we'd have brought before us would be whether to extend it for another year.
Okay, thank you.
Sayard or Rochelle, do you have feedback on, would you consider it successful? Looks like we're hauling about the same amount, about every 3 months. We consider it worthwhile, successful.
Well, I mean, it is helping get more stuff out of landfill. I guess it depends on if, I mean, it's only cost what's costing. I mean, it's gonna go up obviously each year a little bit because fees go up, but you know, 12 or almost $1,300. It has been remember last time I had FY 21 and 22 side by side. I just had 22 this time because I thought we were just talking about the funding. But you know, the previous year, there was, I think, 3 hauls that were trash. And now there's just 1 haul. So it is getting, I think the word's getting out, it's getting cleaner. That, you know, also Public Services staff really help keep it clean as well, and signage. So it's getting better. You know, I don't know if we'll keep this forever. You know, there might be other options out there, such as, you know, Republic Services is opening up that recycling center, and that is more robust in taking items.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Larson, I would say yes. So I think it is really successful. The problem with water bottles is they don't weigh very much. So when you look at this, you think, wow, you know, 0.69 tons in a year, is that really worthwhile? But it is getting used. People are pretty dedicated. I mean, ideally people would use reusable water bottles. So you know, we can even offer reusable water bottles at the transfer station or something and try to promote use of reusable water bottles. But I think a couple of things we've learned, it's like Sarah said, our staff is pretty diligent now with watching for contamination. People would throw their water bottles in there and then shove 3 bags of trash in there or something. And so we're pretty careful now with you know, monitoring. So I think it's gotten much cleaner. And I do think that it's being used. And so I guess it's just a matter of where you want to put money, but it is being used pretty regularly.
Mr. Chair, well, I mean, certainly it's a fairly low cost in the grand scheme of things. And as you point out, it is diverting trash from the landfill. So I think it has value.
Sure. One other thing, and I don't know if this is being captured, but maybe that's a better way to show that, Rochelle. I mean, because you're right, when you list tonnage, it doesn't sound like very much, but that could be 2 million water bottles for all I know. So some way of showing what the volume is might be a way to help tell that story on why it's valuable, and then why, again, as you promote this more to the public, you know, if you understand, you know, it seems like in America, we're much easier to say this is the same size as an elephant, or it fills up a railroad car. That would mean something to a lot of people versus just weight. So that might be a way just to promote it a little bit more and get people to understand that they are making a difference.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And yes, you're exactly right. So we only haul this container when it's full. And I think it's a 10-yard container, right? Isn't it 10? Yeah, it's a 10-yard container. So you're right. It actually, the volume is actually pretty significant when you look at it by volume. It's just water bottles over time have become really lightweighted. So what they used to be even, you know, 5 years ago versus now, they spill on you when they open because they're so thin, you know. So, but you're right. I think we could talk about this in terms of volume, what that's equivalent to.
Yeah, I mean,
It's probably a much better story.
that tonnage, and you, instead of showing the tonnage, you showed me 4 10-yard containers, and I'm feeling 4 10-yard containers didn't go into the landfill. That might mean a lot more to me than 0.14 doesn't sound like much, but then again, it's all relative.
And Chair, you know, I know we're going to be talking about this later on, but this might be information that would be helpful in the annual report, is to showcase, you know, I don't know, have 10 or not 10, have, you know, X amount of roll-offs, you know, the 10-yard, to see this is what we've, you know, dumped, which I guess 5, there's 6 hauls, but 5 were, no, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 10-yard. So I think showcasing that might be a way to, you know, really highlight what this program has done.
Go ahead. And if you could just quick introduce yourself for the record.
Jay Markle, Republic Services. And one way to look at that is kind of look like a football field, right? We're only saying it's 0.67 ton. In reality, we're 40 yards of recyclable bottles, and that's why. When you look at it, that's just kind of a comparison, right? How do we make it look bigger than it is? Well, it's not really bigger than it is. That is the reality of this 40 yards. Just wanted to throw that out there as kind of a comparison. That's all.
Okay, so just to kind of help us a little bit on this, where we're at approved by this commission is $10,800, up to $10,800 from the CRF to go ahead and handle glass. If no further action would be taken, that would be more than enough to go ahead and cover the ask for the glass program. But with no money set aside for the squishy water bottles, it could lead towards the to the termination of the squishy water bottle project. So at this point, adding on to that to say that the 10,800 would not to exceed 10,800 would cover glass and the squishy water bottles would be appropriate, since only 9,100 is going to be actually requested. Or you could go ahead and make it that specific and say that the combination of glass and bottles would be to not exceed 9,108. But any of those options is an appropriate motion at this particular time.
Mr. Chair. So is it correct that the commission approved 10,800 for glass in October already?
Yes, we approved up to 10,800 for glass.
And if we were to only spend 7,800 of that on glass hauling, then that difference would remain in the community recycling fund?
Correct.
Okay. So there is not. So we would either need to amend that action from October to include the water bottles or make a separate action for just water bottles.
Those both are appropriate.
Thank you. So I'm always optimistic for massive success and growth of more recycling. So I would move to authorize up to $2,000 to fund the squishy water bottles. Continuation of that program.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize spending from the Community Recycling Fund of up to $2,000 to cover FY23 squishy water bottle collection. Are there comments on the motion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of authorizing up to $2,000 for FY23 for squishy water bottles signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Now, in trying not to be perceived as being biased on this subject, I want to thank you for that authorization and support of this whole thing. Indeed, as we're at the Public Works Expo, for example, and we're talking with the public, there is a significant portion of the population that says they really appreciate the opportunity to recycle glass and squishy water bottles, but I just don't think it's a broadcast that opportunity exists. But for those people who are participating in it, they do really appreciate it. So anyway, I believe that should, well, and so Sayre, you'll go ahead and get those two memos together and I will, well, and they can be presented to council.
Yep, I'll put them together and then present it at one time. Might be easier than going 2 times.
With that, we'll move on to the next item of old business, which is just a report from the subcommittee we put together to consider CRF program, community recycling fund program, processes and procedures and potential. I could go ahead and, shall I start with Commissioner Keating and or Terrell, I guess you've got it. Okay, perfect. We've got the slide in front of us with the subcommittee findings. Terrell, if you want to go ahead and discuss the slide that's in front of us.
Okay, we found that the application process that was very thorough, and one of the first things that we discovered is that we kind of need to streamline that application process. There's several documents, and there's a lot of redundancy in those documents. So we were thinking, one of the findings was that if we could just streamline that process of making it more user-friendly for the applicant. And in that, the MCRF document, these were just a few of the things that we kind of pointed out. Like, for example, there's a thing in there that indicates there's a matching program and a non-matching program. Should the matching program remain, or should it be eliminated? The documents there's so many documents that it actually could make it a little bit more streamlined to eliminate a matching program. Just wanted to bring it up to see if it made it more confusing for the applicant. So that's one little segment of it. And in the section G, we also were thinking about, do we do this process on the dates that we meet, like January through October, or is it a fiscal year? When is the application awarded? And then, so that's under section G. And then the other thing that was kind of interesting in reading through it is that we wanted to figure out, do we use different type of categories, like for a business, individuals, or a nonprofit organization? And if we do that, is there a certain money allocation, like does a business get more, or does an individual get less, or so on and so forth? And then in that same page, should the application be written in Spanish, add that into the documents. And then to conclude that, we, as far as the section 2 on the review process, how should the group decide? Do they use the current rate sheet that is part of the application process, or is there a better method, or so that's kind of the findings that, just going through all of that paperwork, there just seems to be a lot of redundancy in the paperwork, and a little bit cumbersome when you see that much redundancy. That was it.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was interesting that, and thank you, Conrad, for stepping in at one point, being the first one to kind of streamline where if they hit those marks, then I thought that was nice of you. Thank you. And then, yeah, reading that entire document, it's Groundhog's Day. several times where you're reading it, a couple of items, and then coming to the commission several times for a fundraising events for, helping the city of Meridian. It did seem like streamlining it, simpler it down could help. But having some of the language that the document has, keeping that because of, making sure that it's up against Meridian's, codes and having all that kind of language, that was very helpful for any kind of, activity for the community. So.
Any more information from the subcommittee at this point?
Well, so the document, having it reach the community and having them come with ideas for ways of, what is said in the beginning of how can we show the recycling? How can we demonstrate that that's a helpful tool, all that information. I actually lost my point. My point is that having that information to the public is important because some people have ideas that they could share with us and in a way that we can give them education to recycling. I think that was my point. I'm gonna stop now.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of the subcommittee at this time?
Mr. Chair, comment and a question. So I would be in favor of a streamlined, simplified grant process. I think, at least in my experience, a relatively small number of grants that we've made. So I think just keeping it simple is appropriate to our situation. We can always make changes to the program down the road if it becomes more complicated. But to Taryn's list of points here, whether there should be a matching requirement from the recipient that they have to put in some share of the cost of the project. Yeah, skin in the game. So I'm open to that idea. I'm open to eliminating the matching requirement, but I think it should be one category. There's either a matching requirement or there isn't, and not have two separate categories of grants. In the same way, I would do one pool for eligible recipients. If individuals and businesses are eligible, they should be in the same pool with nonprofits. Again, I just don't think we're doing a big volume of grants right now, so keeping it simple. And Taryn, what does the rate sheet refer to? Or Sean?
The rate sheet?
It's section 2 at the bottom of your slide, rate sheet. Would each member fill out a rate sheet for each?
The rate sheet is when you're it's almost okay. The person who actually submits the idea and it's completely done, and they're actually kind of like voting on like the rate sheet would be like from a 1 to a 5. Did it meet the criteria of the program? Did it, I can't remember some of the other questions that I asked, but it's basically like a voting process. For lack of better words, it's like a voting process of who actually gets it, who actually gets the grant.
Gotcha, thank you. I was just a little thrown by the terminology, but I gotcha.
Yeah, and they called it a rate sheet on the actual form. So I would, on that particular section, I just wasn't sure, like, is it supposed to be our committee that is to be voting on this? Or that's why I put that in there, because I just wasn't sure if it was our committee or if it's something that we vote on, that that our committee is the one that does it, or it wasn't clear to me on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think it would make sense for the commission to determine which grants applicants are awarded. I don't know if it would be the whole commission or some subcommittee of 3 members or something that would score the applications and then make the recommendation to council is how that would work. But I think it would be appropriate for us to score the applicants for sure.
Additional comments from commissioners or questions?
Mr. Chair, I just appreciate that a subgroup kind of took a look at this. It's been on our minds for quite a while. And I agree with Commissioner Larson about, I don't think we need to introduce a kind of a matching program, that skin in the game thing, unless we start getting some sort of volume or we're having to start turning people away, I think. Because we have these funds that we should be putting back into the community, at least at this point. But maybe we look at that in following years, but keep it simple now and work up to more complicated as we find reasons to. If that seems reasonable, and is there something that the group would like us to review or what the next steps are from us to help?
I don't know if there's somebody from the subcommittee that wants to discuss if they're still considering it or exactly where their status is.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair. Yes, Commissioner Nelson. So what we came up with is that we're going to look at the solid waste plan, and that wasn't out at that time. And so at that point, we're going to take a look at it soon. And then from there, what goals that Meridian has set. And, that 9% diversion rate at this point, that could be a goal where our education, that money could go to education to meet 15%. And so having that fund in order to meet those goals is one of the things that we talked about, and how the plan is set in place and how that money can accomplish those goals. That's where we thought about, and then seeing what you guys are thinking about as well.
I have a question, Chair. I was wondering, did you guys want to, in the meantime, develop 2 documents that would replace these, or like how are you thinking about doing, what did you want to do with the documents that you guys currently have?
Sayre and Mr. Chair, I would like to kind of review them and see if there's some information that we could eliminate on them and just make it one streamlined document and just make it user friendly. And it might be as simple as cutting and pasting and just eliminating some of the information. So I'd like to see if we can take a look and review those. To do that.
Mr. Chair, I would help her, as a subcommittee, that would be a fine thing to do.
Okay, of course, what I'm hearing is that the subcommittee hasn't completed their work and that they do have some more things that they want to do. Commission, any questions on the status of this at this point?
So, Mr. Chair, at some point, the subcommittee would bring back a revised application package and directions and so forth for the full commission to accept. Is that the plan? Revised draft.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Larson, I mean, speaking, I guess, for myself, that the subcommittee, I mean, we can meet and work on those things. After, I think waiting for the plan to come out for the Meridian is probably our biggest thing in order to use that money, in order to hit the goals that Meridian wants, and see how that money can affect education. I don't know, like, I don't know, next month or month after that to come back to the commissioners about that. I would say maybe 2 months.
That would seem the timeline, because I think we're a couple months out from the final plan.
Oh.
That's what I heard from Sayard earlier. I wouldn't commit to next month.
Yeah, I would say maybe 3 months. Then.
Additional comments at this time? I want to thank the subcommittee for the work that they've been doing, and wish you good luck on working on this. And we look forward to your presentation when you've got a lot of these filled in. With that, we'll move on to new business. Some of this is our annual business. The first item under new business is the voting for officers for the commission for calendar year 23. As I've mentioned before, the way we'll go ahead and run this is that I will open nominations, and if you have someone you want to place in nomination, just say so. One would, and then the opportunity would be for a second at that particular point, and then we'll continue with additional requests for people being nominated until we get a long quiet period, or if someone moves to have nominations close. And depending on how that goes, then I'll give a little bit more details of the process of how we do this. So if we're ready at that point, then we'll start with chair. And are there any nominations for chairman for the commission for FY23?
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that Steve Corey be chairman for FY23. And I am humbled and appreciate the nomination, and I accept that nomination. If there are additional people who are nominated to run, I will turn over the running of the meeting to Meg. But are there further nominations for chairman for FY23 for calendar year 23?
Mr. Chair, move to close nominations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that nominations be closed. All those in favor of closing nominations for chairman signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Okay, so we'll go on and proceed to the vote since, well, anyway, all those in favor of Steve Corey being chairman for the Solid Waste Advisory Commission for calendar year 2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. I always appreciate any kind of criticism or suggestions on the position. So please know my door's open for any conversation. We'll move next to vice chairman for the commission. Are there any nominations for vice chairman?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Larson for vice chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that Commissioner Larson be vice chair for calendar year 2023. Commissioner Larson, do you accept the nomination?
I do, happy to serve.
Okay. Are there further nominations?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we close nominations.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that nominations be closed. All those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. So we'll proceed to voting for Meg Larson to be the vice chair for the commission for calendar year 23. All those in favor of Commissioner Larson being vice chair signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Congratulations, you are vice chair.
Thank you.
We have another item that's put into city code, and that is establishing our meeting agenda for the calendar year. Certainly, this is an opportunity for anyone that sees any kind of issues with our time period, but we've certainly developed a tradition for the fourth Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and therefore the council chambers are available to us. It would certainly be appropriate at this time if anyone's got any thoughts about that schedule.
Mr. Chair, I see no reason to change.
In that case, a motion to go ahead and continue to have meetings the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 o'clock in council chambers would be appropriate. You could certainly at this particular point say excluding November and December, and that would save us a little bit of effort later on in the year.
Mr. Chair, move to establish the meeting schedule as the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. in council chambers, excluding the months of November and December.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go ahead and have our meetings the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. in council chambers, excluding the months of November and December. Further conversation, further discussion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. All those in favor of meeting the fourth Wednesday at 4 o'clock in council chambers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on new business is the quarterly CRF report. And I'm pleased to, I'm sorry I didn't bring my reading glasses. I believe the current balance of the CRF is just over $84,000. And we've had roughly about $3,000, I believe, that's come in during the previous quarter. Maybe $2,500 would be more close. There are no outstanding expenses against that. Oh, I'm sorry. There are two outstanding authorized expenses. One of them is the glass program that we have, and the other one is the squishy water bottle. So otherwise, the remaining amount is unencumbered at this particular point. So roughly speaking, $70,000 available. So any questions on the CRFP at this point? Very good. We'll move on to the next item, which is the annual report. And I know I've floated that around for you to see the draft report. Obviously, we're in a great position at this point. If you've got suggestions to go ahead and bring forth, they are very welcome at this point.
Mr. Chair, no suggestions, but I did read through the report and I appreciate your pulling that together. I think it sounds great.
I think at this particular point, well, um, very good. Then I guess if you have any further comments on that, they're certainly welcome. You can go ahead and email them to myself. And we'll go ahead and incorporate all that material into it. I think we're on the schedule for February 21st is going to be the meeting, and I will put together a slide deck. The slide deck will have a few more of the pictures. We'll include, kind of starting off with it, the picture of the commission that we took recently, and I will express your wishes to the council. With that, we'll move on to the Ada County Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting. The committee meeting was held this afternoon this morning at 10:30. And the reason I put this on the schedule is that we had been given some foreshadowing at the agenda setting meeting. And fortunately, I think some of the things that were discussed this morning make it a little less timely, but I do want to get this information to you now. Certainly in sharpening the pencil and looking at what's going on, the landfill is identifying that they have about 45 years of life left on the landfill as currently designed. In that case, they would be looking at a new landfill in 2065, on or about that time, give or take 5 years. But it takes about 20 years to go ahead and get the designs in place. And prior to that, they need to go ahead and acquire land. So they're kind of giving us the heads up that we will start seeing some information about their plans for the next landfill after this fairly soon. And in regards to that, two things. They're looking at their capital budget and whether it included the money to go ahead and carry out design efforts and the closing and capping functions that they need to do with the existing North Ravine. And they're feeling they may have a shortfall. And so they're giving us a warning that they may be requesting an increase in disposal fees to go ahead and make sure that that account is fully funded going forward to cover their regulatory obligations. They did make it clear today that that would not go into effect until FY25, so a year from October. So that was appreciated. And they do hope to be able to identify what their monetary needs are and what the bump in the disposal fees would be by the end of this fiscal year, by October. So we would have plenty of time to understand that and be able to work with it. They also indicated other things that in the process of incorporating operations into the landfill, they had originally been under the impression of all maintenance for the heavy equipment that the landfill was going to be using would be covered. All the maintenance costs would be covered by their supplier. It turns out the supplier was only indicating routine maintenance would be there, but where equipment wasn't. And as a result of that, they're foreseeing a bit of a budget deficit there too. Anyway, unfortunately, I do need to bring down the fact that we're likely to go ahead and be receiving requests for additional disposal costs coming up in the next 21 months. Fortunately, they won't be affected in 9 months, but I wanted to make sure you have that information as soon as possible. And with that, is there any questions about the information coming down from the Ada County SWAC?
Mr. Chair, seeing that they're building a education area right now, is it going to be like a permanent site there? Is it going to be mobile for the next landfill or?
So, yeah, the current, this year's construction projects for stationing, access, administration building, and everything else are only to support the existing operation. We were given an indication that a proposal is in the works about potentially some more area within the footprint up there might be proposed as an expansion of the property up there. That would indeed extend the life of the landfill. They were talking about potentially extending it by another 10 years. And of course, diversion definitely helps us. So if over the course of the next few years, we can put in some good diversion programs, that'll extend the life of the landfill. Certainly, there are some significant areas like construction and debris, or there's still a significant amount of organic material that's going up there. And so I'm hoping that we're going to get some additional possibilities on that activity. I know the landfill is very motivated to go ahead and propose things along those lines, whether they would be done up at the landfill or how they would be carried out is something I look forward to hear, because depending on how those are put together, they could be very helpful in extending the life of the landfill. And so that could change these plans. And the nice thing about it too is that in order to prepare all these documents, rather than, well, they will be using an accounting firm to go ahead and work through all of this information and put it together and present it to us for our information and consideration. So I'm expecting good financial information as we go through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Additional questions? With that, then we complete the new business portion of the agenda and move on to stakeholder updates. And any, I think, well, anyway, I would, whoa, and there is something I do need to go ahead and pass on to report back to you. Over the course of the time since October, I did have a chance to go ahead and sit down with the Arts Commission and talk to them about a potential project. And they have passed back the following concept, that the gallery up on the third floor is already scheduled through 2023. So if we were going to go ahead and do some kind of a juried presentation up there, it would happen in 2024, calendar year 2024. But they certainly are receptive to something being done during Art Week, which at least in this schedule would be like September 16th through 23rd of this year. If we wanted to have a booth at the art fair, and certainly there's a lot of things that could be done at that particular point, either having a kind of a mini contest of things, or otherwise having some examples of material that's art that's created from reused material. And they had indicated 3 artists that they have had at their events recently that have used material, found material, recycled material for putting stuff together, and offered those as people we could talk to in whatever capacity we chose. With that, certainly it comes back to our commission at this particular point as to which path we may choose to go ahead and follow. And certainly we're scheduled usually to meet between 4 and 5. I don't intend to hold people afterwards, but I am more than happy if commissioners want to go ahead and comment on this, that's great. Otherwise, we can pick it up as a agenda item next month. Either would be appropriate. With that, are there other stakeholders? Well, first off, unfortunately, which direction? Commissioners, do you have any comments on that information?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. So I know last year we kind of talked about having that sort of as a competition for youth. And personally for me, art being kind of one of my interests, I really like that idea of sort of involving youth and having that like dual program between recycling, education, and also the art program. So one thing maybe we could look at is reaching out to one of those artists as sort of I guess maybe mentor or like a judge for a competition, and some sort of competition that we can involve youth in. So that's one of my ideas for that program.
Mr. Chair, I would echo those comments. I think that's a great idea. Some kind of community activity is very appealing to me. And then the opportunity to educate about recycling at the same time is a good partnership for us with art. I think that that's a preferable track than a jury show in the gallery.
Additional comments? Okay. Let me go ahead and reach out to those suggested artists and go ahead and find out their interest on this, and be prepared to sharpen the pencil on this subject at next month's meeting, and we'll go ahead and get a little bit better plan going. That might be a bit of stretch on stakeholders, but I assume that the concept of stakeholder updates would be other people who have a stake in our
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to introduce Ray Plum. He's here with Jay Markle, our ops manager today. And I know we're over on time, but Ray is working, he's a route auditor for us, and he's been with us for how many years, Ray? 5. Okay. And he's born and raised right here in Meridian, president, I think, I'm going to remember here, of the Dairy Days board, right? Or vice. Okay. He's on the board of Dairy Days. So anyway, I probably should have Jay introduce him, but we just want to make sure, Ray will be coming to our meetings, and he will be working here in the city of Meridian. It benefits all of us to have a route auditor, making sure we know what we're doing on the street, making sure that billing matches our route sheets, and make sure that we're providing the services needed in Meridian. And so you'll see him more frequently here at SWAC meetings. So I just want to make sure it's Ray Plum again. Thank you.
Very good. Additional stakeholder updates? And I do think this is a really good idea for us to go ahead and kind of add into the agenda listing action items. So we'll start capturing them in here and go ahead and review action items as we go forward. And that's not to say kind of general items like we've got at this particular point, but yeah, well, I guess we'll start out with this one for the action on the next one. my action to go ahead and contact the artists. So with that, is there any further business that the commission needs to take up at this time? Hearing none, then we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. It is now 10 minutes after 5. And as always, I really appreciate your participation and support of the city of Meridian.